today we're changing things up a little bit. We're going to take a break from the skiff build, and we're going to go ahead and I got to work on the Bush Hog a little bit. I haven't sharpened the blades in quite a while, and last time I used it, it was mowing a little bit unevenly, and you could tell it was chomping on through. So it's time to do a little service and a little work on that thing. And I've been doing a lot of skiff build videos because that's what I've been doing. I've been full bore going at it, trying to get this thing done. And I hope I kind of started the channel doing more tractor and working on stuff. So I hope everybody's still following along. And I'm gonna try to mix things up from here on out a little bit and try to keep everybody interested, keep everybody happy. And I hope you're liking all the videos. And if you are following along the skiff build, I had a comment the other day that I think it was part 2, or whatever reason it was showing the error whenever you tried to pull it up on the cell phone. And I tried and went through, tried to figure out what was going on, no idea. It just magically, thankfully, cleared itself. So if you're having trouble viewing that one, it should be good now. And thanks again to everyone who has subscribed. I really appreciate it. And I'm trying to get this thing built up a little bit, and it's kind of exciting. And I figured, I might get a few subscribers and just wanted to share some videos, but we're getting close to 1,000. And for me, that's pretty big. So I hope you've subscribed. If you have, thank you so much. So this is just going to be a short little video. I'm not going to go, crazy in depth. I don't want to bore a bunch of people, but just kind of give a general idea of what I do to sharpen blades on a Bush Hog. And we're going to go ahead and get started. Now, I've had this old Bush Hog probably 10, 12 years. Maybe longer than that. I can't remember. I'd have to sit down and try to rack my brain. But it's an old, I think it's a BMH or BME. I can't read the lettering anymore. It's so faded. Someone commented and said, I'll have to try to find that comment and see. They said they had the same one, and it was, I think, a BME. But this has been a good Bush Hog. I've used it for years, and obviously beat the snot out of it and abused it, and probably not taking care of it quite like I should. So you can see this thing, it's been welded up quite a bit, and I don't know what on this is factory and what isn't, and that's still bent. I'm not sure. There's a story behind that, and I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it involves a tree and my great-grandpa. So you can tell that's been up. My pin over here is loose. I got to tighten that thing up. So it needs some love, that's for sure. All right, we got her all hooked up. Let's see what we can do. All right, well, we got it lifted up. We averted catastrophe there. One of my chains slipped off. But anyway, so the blades, I've sharpened these things a couple times, and they're pretty wore out. But I mean, I don't think I'm gonna spend the money to put new ones on here. But one thing I have been wanting to do is these bolts are, I mean, who knows what the insides of these look like. One of these go flying off. I mean, Lord only knows what would happen. But I think I was just gonna sharpen these up, but now that I went through the trouble of lifting it up, I think I'm gonna cut these bolts off and go ahead and take a cutting wheel, cut these things off and replace them with some grade 8 bolts. So these pieces are kind of wore, but I don't know, once I get them off, we'll see what we want to do. But I'll probably just put everything back together the way it is, put some washers on these, and I think we'll just go from there. But I'm gonna go ahead and get these cut off. All right, so I finally beat off the one piece because I wasn't able to grind all the way down, but I'm curious to see. Just knocking that off, this doesn't look nowhere near as worn as I anticipated. And I mean, it's really not badly. I mean, it's worn a little, but a little surprising there. Well, anyway, we're gonna have new bolts in this thing. So I wasn't able to cut, all the way into the bolt, so I've got a little bit of an edge there, so I may have to grind a little bit of that off. But I cut it off as close as I could and then ground down just a touch more. All right, well, I've got a bunch of junk on my vise, and I just put my foot on it and use the little grinding wheel and sharpen back in here a little bit too, just for giggles. But really, this area right here is really your main cutting area. And I like to get it a decent steep angle on it, because if you get it too great of an angle, it's just gonna roll the edge over whenever you hit dirt or hit a rock or anything. So that's a pretty, it's a decently steep angle. So, all right, well, I got them reinstalled, and I had to run up to the hardware store and get grade 8 bolts. And unfortunately, they had a very slim selection, and I'm in a hurry trying to get this thing done. But the only thing they had, I think these are 5/8 by 18, I believe. Yeah, 5/8, 18. And that's what size the bolts are, I guess, that were factory. But originally they had 2 bolts jamming together, and then they tack welded them. And that would really be a lot better. I don't know if I'm gonna trust these lock nuts, but unfortunately that is the only thing they had in either 5/8 or 1/2 inch. And you know, this is what it is. Next time I sharpen these, I'm gonna check and make sure all this is still good and tight. But I mean, it should be fine, but I just worry, the only thing that concerns me is these lock nuts backing off. But the bushings in here are a touch oversized, so I got them good and tightened down, and hopefully everything will hold together and stay together. But only time will tell, and who knows, I may run this thing over a stump and kill it here soon. So it doesn't really matter. Well, that's pretty much it for sharpening the blades, and this was a lot easier because I had to take these off anyway to replace these bolts. But if you did not have to, you could lift it up like this and pretty much just turn your blades over like so. And it would be better to put like a strap in here or something to hold it steady so you don't get hurt. And you could take your grinder and sharpen them up. And if you don't have means to lift it up this way, I've done it before where I take it on the back of the tractor, lift it up as high as it would go, and put jack stands on all 4 corners, and just to be real safe about it, and crawl up under here with a grinder and grind these down. And as far as sharpening it up in here, you don't really need to do that. It's just something I always like doing. And I don't do it to the taper, just, I don't know why I do it, to be honest with you. It's just something I've always done. It's something I can't really explain. So you don't have to do that. This is really the only part that has to be sharpened that's important, but that's just up to you. So that's pretty much it. That's all I can think of. So we're gonna go ahead and let this thing down, and I've got to grease up the gearbox and get to mowing. I'll take that back. There is one thing I want to address. Right here, you can see it's bent down pretty good, and that's just from years of abuse and use. And I've crawled under here and tried to beat this out a bunch of times, and I haven't had it hung up like this for a while. So I am gonna try to straighten this out, because whenever you cut the bush hog off, there are areas where the blades will hit, like right in here and right here. Well, I don't think it's been hitting right here, honestly. It doesn't look like it, but right here is where it's been hitting. So I'm gonna take my sledgehammer and beat this out real quick. All right, well, we got her set back down and unscathed, thankfully. So this was my great grandfather's, and when I got it, if you put oil, 90 weight gear oil in here, it would pour out the bottom. And it's been that way as long as I can remember. When he was alive, I can't remember, probably 15 years ago, when he was using this thing, he did the same thing. And I'm not advising this, it's just what has always been ran in this thing, and that's just grease. All right, well, that's pretty much it. I take and just fill this thing full of grease, and I'll take this one out as well and fill it full. But you know, please don't think I'm recommending this. This is just something that you can do. It's an option. If your seals are bad and you don't have the means or the time, kind of like me, to replace the seals, but you still need to use the Bush Hog, this works. And this thing's been going strong for probably 30 years, pumping this thing full of grease. And I do it, you know, just about every other time I use it, and it works just fine. But, you know, that's one of those things that's not really recommended. But if you need it to get by, it works. Well, if you ever wanted to know what pill ply looked like after it got ran over by a bush hog, that's pretty much it. And that's the pill ply I used to rebuild my boat that blew down in the grass and I forgot about. I didn't forget about it now. So I had a question asked on one of my bush hog videos, and they were asking about unhooking a bush hog. And it's getting dark, so I don't really have time to go through everything. But what I do, obviously, is drop it down, which I'm sure you know that. But I'm gonna drop this thing down, and the first thing I'm gonna check is this top link right here. Because if you have it too tight, too loose, it'll be pushing back here, pushing up here. So you wanna turn and twist this to adjust it where you've got play in it like that. But that's where I normally run it, so it stays kind of level. And that's the first thing I'm gonna take off to make sure nothing's in a bind. And now, it depends on these 8 ends. When you're running an overrun clutch, the shafts are always too long. And that really creates a problem. And it was a problem on this one for a while until I cut the shaft down. But if your shaft is too long, when this thing is all the way down, it's gonna put this in a bind. And you're gonna have a really hard time getting that off of your overrun clutch because there's not enough room to back it up. So what I do is go ahead and hook the drawbars, and then I will roll the tractor forward, get on the tractor, just push the clutch in, or whatever you got to do to just roll it up in about 2 inches. And then that'll give you the room that you need to get your PTO shaft off. But you want to be very careful when you're doing that, because if this isn't out of gear, it isn't hooked up, nothing's hooked up, and you engage your PTO, that could be bad. So you want to make sure, I normally don't ever crank the tractor up when I'm unhooking a bush hog, so if I can avoid it. But once you get anything unhooked, you don't want to crank it up. So if you can just push the clutch in, kick it out of gear, whatever you got to do, just roll it over by hand. And on these things, like this one over here, I'll show you. This one is I really need to fix this. I just haven't gotten around to it. But you can see this pin is cocked back because this right here is bent. And you know, I've been running it this way for years, and I don't know why I haven't fixed it, to be honest with you. It's just one of those things that the only time I ever think about it is when I'm hooking it up. I don't think about it when I'm using it, taking it off, anything. But that kind of does throw off my stabilizer arms, because you got to they don't really line up because the pin is sticking back further. So what I'll do is I will hook up my drawbars, and I will leave the PTO shaft unhooked. And I always use a wire whenever I unhook it or something, just to hold it up off the ground so it's not in the dirt. And I'll make sure the PTO shaft's unhooked, and I'll lift it up, you know, about halfway. And then I can carefully, so the drawbars don't slip off, I can move it around and get my stabilizer bars on. So probably a lot of you already know that and know how to disconnect a bush hog and hook one up. But whenever I get questions or comments, I'm trying to do my best to answer them. And it may take me a little while, especially with getting it in a video, because I'm so far behind on editing. It's not even funny, and I apologize, but life's been crazy. And I'm trying to, you know, answer anybody that's leaves me a comment if I can, and, you know, try to answer any questions. So that's kind of why I wanted to start the channel, just to kind of share what I know. I mean, I'm no expert on really anything. I try to just know a decent amount about everything. And that's a drawback, because you're not really an expert on a whole lot if you know a little bit about everything. But I enjoy that more because it keeps me active and keeps me learning. So that's just me. That's the way I like it. Well, as you saw, I about had a really big mishap, and that was 100% my fault. The chain had already fallen off one time, and I did not check it again. I thought I had it good and went ahead and lifted it on up because I was trying to get things done. And that's when you make mistakes, and that's exactly what I did. And when that chain popped off, I don't know how, I don't know why, but by the grace of God, somehow the thing didn't go crashing down, because it absolutely should have. And that, I couldn't have done anything about it. I could have just jumped up and down and yelled, but that'd been it. It'd just been what it was. So I think the moral of the story is, when you're using chains, you probably should use clevises, but is what it is. Live and learn. Well, that's going to be it for today, and I hope somebody found something helpful. And I didn't really want to go too in depth and just bore a bunch of people, but just kind of give a general idea of what I do. It's not necessarily the gospel or what you should do, but This is what I do. So I want to throw that out there. But I hope everybody liking the videos, and I hope you're subscribed. If you have, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.